Hi, it's the Soul Whisperer, Amy Shaw here. As always, I'm so honored that you clicked on this video, that you're visiting my channel. If it resonates with you at all, I just ask if you could take a quick second and just hit a thumbs up on that or share the video. That way I can spread my message. What I want to talk about today is healing. And the reason this is coming up for me is because I actually had somebody that contacted me. They were interested in shamanic work, and we went back and forth a little bit. She told me that she had watched some videos on my channel and that she saw one of the comments that I made on one of my videos. And it was something about how a lot of people seek shamans and they really are looking for a miracle. And, she kind of felt sad about my response to that because I said something about, alluding to miracles not being possible. I don't really know. I didn't find the comment. She didn't quote it exactly, but she seemed kind of disappointed in my comments on my channel, pertaining it to people that come seeking shamanic services looking for a miracle. And, she asked me, is that okay? Is that okay that I'm looking for a miracle? So it really kind of got me thinking about that a lot this week, and just, as I've shared many times before, how I choose to make videos is kind of a synchronous culmination of events that occur that get my mind to sort of thinking in one way, and then other things pop up, and it feeds into that in this sort of stream that eventually culminates to this point where I say, I have to make a video about this. So definitely that's what happened to me this week. And that ball started rolling with her email and her telling me that. And then I also went to Women's Circle this week, and it was a healing circle in particular. We talked about Masaru Emoto's work. I have his book, Messages with Water, actually behind me. I'm really familiar with his work. I've talked about it many times in videos. A lot of people will call it a pseudoscience or say that it's not scientific enough. But then I also came across another video the other day where a woman, she homeschools her children, and she did the rice experiment. If you are not familiar, if you haven't heard of the rice experiment, and what people do is they take 3 glass jars, sterile glass jars, and this woman sterilized them by boiling them in the same pot of water. And then she cooked organic rice in her rice cooker. She took a cup of rice and dumped it 1 cup exactly into each of the 3 jars and put the lids on them. And then she put labels on the outside. She labeled one love, she labeled one hate, and then she labeled the third one neglect. And so she had her kids for 60 days pick the jars up and speak in those things into them. So they would pick the jars up and say, I hate you, you're the ugliest rice. And they would pick the next jar up and say, oh, I love you, you're so beautiful, you smell so nice. So they would speak love and hate into the rice. And then the neglect one, they just completely would neglect it and leave it alone. So at the end of the 60 days, she showed us in the video what the 3 different containers of rice look like. And there was profound differences. It's actually not shocking to me at all. But the differences in the 3 containers was absolutely profound. And so the conclusion of these types of experiments is that our intention matters. Whether you look at this and you think, oh, that's not really scientific, that's just a quasi-scientific, that's not a controlled environment. I mean, we could come up with 150 different criticisms of the scientific method of the experiment. But the fact of it is that it's a simple experiment. Anybody could do it at home. And, I think that they're consistent results. They're very consistent results. Many, many people have done this experiment. There's videos all over YouTube of that and similar things. I know shamans personally who have gotten together, and I've talked about this, altered the pH balance of water, the pH balances of foods, just by their intention. And so I know I'm a believer. And see, this is the shamanic way. And I think that people, I encounter this a lot in my breast cancer circles. I'm a breast cancer survivor, metastatic. I had a metastatic reoccurrence, which actually puts me in a whole different category than if I had been diagnosed stage 4 from the beginning. So in other words, I had 2 solid years of very, very aggressive cancer treatment because the type of cancer that I had was highly aggressive. 2 solid years nonstop of highly aggressive cancer treatment, and still had a metastatic recurrence after that. So it puts me in a sort of different, category or situation with that particular disease than some other people who might have been diagnosed right out the gate stage 4. So, I'm in my cancer circles, and, all around, I hear this consistent message or this consistent theme about cancer, and even how people approach me about my own disease. I've had no evidence of disease since 2007, okay? I still do chemotherapy every 3 weeks. That's a very complicated thing, and I don't really want to get into that. I'd much rather share that individual to individual rather than on a YouTube video that's being watched by who knows anonymous people, because it is a very intimate part of my process of healing, and I am still healing. I mean, there's no doubt. I had this crazy, insane dream this morning, and I won't get into it, but I actually, although it was very surreal, I understood on the deepest level that it was pertaining to me and my healing from cancer. So it actually brought up some feelings for me, some tears. And so I am in the still healing process of that. And so I am still doing chemotherapy, even though I have had no evidence of disease since 2007. But I still, to this day, will get people sending me things through Facebook or through email, this cures cancer, this cures cancer, look, somebody cured their cancer with this. So the newest one this week is lemons, right? Putting lemons, you put a whole lemon in the blender and you mix it with the water, and so you're eating the lemon and the lemon skin all together, and that supposedly is the newest thing that cures cancer. Believe me, I have been in cancer treatment for 14 years now, and I've heard it all. Everything from coffee enemas to drinking your own urine to this, crazy wild berry thing only found in this jungle over here to this special tea to, these sort of electroshock thing. I mean, I have heard it all. Everything under the sun that you can imagine, I've heard it all. But what people don't fundamentally understand about the shamanic way of healing is that everything is potentially a placebo. And I think that these experiments, like with the rice and Masaru Emoto's work with messages with water, I think those really feed into the shamanic view in the sense that they understand how powerful the mind is, that everything is controlled by the mind. Our brain speaks to every single cell in our body. And so I often will hear people say, well, if you have cancer, you should not eat sugar because sugar feeds cancer. Or you should not eat starches because starches turn to sugar and sugar feeds cancer. Or, there's militant vegans out there that just insist that, an organic whole foods diet. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't eat like that. Of course, we should eat mindfully and be healthy about what we eat. But the key that they're missing there is that intention is everything. So if you're eating that crappy McDonald's food and you're telling yourself, this is going to cause me a heart attack, you're going to have a heart attack. Maybe not the first hamburger that you eat, but if you continue eating that food and telling yourself that message. So in a sense, when people are putting that out there, that, eating McDonald's is going to give you a heart attack, it's actually kind of potentially the form of a curse. You're actually cursing people because you're putting that thought and that belief into their mind, and the mind is powerful. I'm not saying that you could eat McDonald's every day for the rest of your life, the next 60 years, and that it's not going to have some sort of physical effect on you, because it potentially can. But what I'm saying is that, can a person have mastery over that to where they're actually transmuting that food so that it is not damaging to the body? Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. So I think people often confuse when we're talking about healing. They often confuse naturopathy or homeopathy or, these alternative quote-unquote treatments with shamanism. They think shamanism is just an alternative treatment or a different flavor of the same thing, but it's not. To me, how shamanism and shamanic healing is fundamentally different is that it harnesses the knowledge, the knowing of how powerful the mind is. And so it really combines the soul with the etheric body, with the physical, all the elements, the psychological, the emotional. It combines all of these things and understands that they're so intricately related that they can actually be separated. that we do fundamentally cause our own dis-ease, and we do fundamentally cause our own healing. So in that aspect, in my mind, everything is potentially a placebo, everything. And suggestibility is king in that frame of mind. So when I made the comment, whatever the comment was, about people expecting a miracle, what I really think I meant by that, and what I still stand by to this day, is that people come to shamanism, they approach a shaman as if it's allopathic medicine, as if it's something external to them that can just be applied and can instantly fix whatever their problem is, instantly cure their symptoms or their diseases. And I'm not saying that that can happen, because it does. Miracles do happen, and I've seen them happen, and they've happened in my own life. Certainly, I am testimony to that. Here I am with stage 4 cancer in a less than 1% survival category. They basically told me, statistically, I had 18 months to live. Here I am, 14 years later from my original diagnosis, 11 years later since my metastatic reoccurrence. And as I said, I've had no evidence of disease since 2007. So I didn't get to that point by luck, and I certainly didn't get there by the chemotherapy alone, because the chemotherapy that I'm doing now is the same chemotherapy that I had, and I still had a metastatic recurrence. So in other words, that particular drug failed me. So I already know, I have a history of knowing that drug actually doesn't work for me. It didn't cure my cancer. I still had a metastatic recurrence even after I had this particular drug. But it's the drug that I'm on. And I can say the same thing really about my son. He went 8 months, he was having 2 to 3 seizures a month. And he went 8 months with no seizure. And then he had a seizure, unfortunately. But then he went another 6 months with no seizure. And he just recently had a seizure again. But to go 8 months with no seizure and then 6 months with no seizure when he was having 2 and 3 a month. And he's not on any anti-seizure medications. So we have testimony in our own family of the power of healing and of shamanic healing in particular. So I'm not saying that miracles don't happen or that they can't happen, that they're not possible. What's more accurate of what I'm saying is that people approach shamanism in the same way as they approach allopathic medicine, except they think instead of being given a pill, they're just going to be given this external treatment. And they're expecting this thing to happen external to them that will fix their internal. And it doesn't work like that. It has to move into the internal space and be integrated. And so it's interesting, because this same woman that told me this, she also told me that she went ahead and booked an hour-long session with another shaman, and it was a distance session. She told me that he just told her to lay down for an hour between a specific time. And then he called her when that hour was up and basically told her, okay, it's done. I did the work for you. And that was it. And she said, but I don't feel any different, Like 2 days have gone by and I don't feel it like any different. I would say that some shamans work that way. I don't personally work that way. I think it's possible to do that level of work and to fully believe that you are helping somebody. But in my experience, healing doesn't happen like that. First of all, the groundwork has to be laid. Let's just get into this. I'm just going to get into this. Let's just say that what's really needed is soul retrieval. But this person comes, and let's say they come to me and they don't exactly even know what soul retrieval is. They don't know what they need. They just have symptoms and they want relief from the symptoms. And they've tried X, Y, and Z, and none of that has worked, and they're at rope's end. So they're actually in a pretty bad state, right? To be at rope's end, they're in a pretty bad state. And they're feeling pretty hopeless, and their symptoms have gone on for a really long time, and they don't know what to do. So they're coming to me, and they're saying, here's my symptoms, can you help me? And I'm assessing the situation, and okay, it seems to me like soul retrieval is necessary here. I'm not sure if the spirits are actually going to support that at this time, but I think that's what's needed, and I'm going to go in and try to see if that's what's going on. But you know what? This person's, I can go retrieve souls 50 times a day for this person. If the groundwork isn't laid and they're not truly ready to receive those soul aspects back into themselves, it's pointless for me to do the work. So the first thing that really has to be done is the groundwork has to be laid. You know, I have to make sure that this person is really strong and ready to receive these soul aspects back. Okay? Okay, let's say they are. Let's say, yes, this person's ready for that. And I go and I do the soul retrieval and I bring the soul aspect back. There has to be some amount of tending that's occurring. You know, and this person has to probably be mentored into how to do that. Okay, this has occurred. I've done this soul retrieval for you. This is the aspect of the soul I brought back. And now you have some homework to do. This is sealing in the healing. You have to tend this soul aspect. And I'll give specific directives on how that needs to happen. You know, and it's going to be unique for each individual. So I can't even like generically tell you on a video, oh, it's going to look like this. Because each individual, the soul aspect is going to be unique to that individual. Why it left is going to be unique to that individual. And how to maintain it and keep it there as an aspect of you is going to be unique to the individual. So I can't even really tell you that per se. But that's how I work. I'm going to do the tending that's required of that. And there's going to be follow-up as well, you know, just checking in and making sure. That's how I work. I personally, I'm not criticizing anybody, but I would never just tell somebody, lay down for an hour and then call them and say, thanks for your money. Hey, I did what needed to be done and you're all better now. In my experience, that's just not how healing works. You know, as a shaman, can I say that I'm confident that within that hour's time that I can go into the spiritual realm and retrieve souls for people and extraction for them and do the shamanic work? Yes, I fully believe that. But I also understand fundamentally that the healing aspects of that, of what occurred in that hour, are not going to stick unless that person is fully bought in. So in that sense, the power always resides within the person that's seeking the shamanic help. It's not in the shaman. If you're giving your power over to something externally, all that is just a reinforcement of the allopathic model, the allopathic medical model, that somebody outside of you or some drug outside of you or some treatment outside of you is going to fix you. I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but healing doesn't work like that. I'm a bridge between this world and the spiritual world. So I can do very profound work in that aspect and see into things that you might not have insight into, is why you're coming to me for shamanic assistance. But the actual healing work itself, it has to be integrated and you have to do the work. I cannot do the work for you. I can walk alongside you and help you tend that. I can guide you in that. But ultimately, the work of the healing, it has to be integrated by the person that's seeking and wanting the healing. And not only that, they have to fully believe that they are in a healing process and that this can work. So I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, that's just how I see it. That's how I see it. And so I'm really making this video to try to educate people about what shamanic healing it really is. That it's not just an alternative modality to the same allopathic model. You know, I think a lot of these alternative treatments, you know, whether it's acupuncture or even Reiki. Let me get into Reiki a little bit because I am Reiki attuned. The reason that I decided to get Reiki attuned is because I got called 20-something years ago by God to lay hands on a woman who had brain cancer, and it was for healing. I got called to do it. I've been told by multiple healers, hands-on Reiki type healers, that I have healer's hands. I've had my hands, you know, looked at under, you know, the aura and Kirlian photography, and you know, it's been confirmed. I have healer hands. I got called, but I didn't know that until actually about 4 or 5 years ago. But I did get called about 20 years ago to lay hands on a woman, and I didn't do it. My ego got in the way, and I got scared. I was terrified. I thought, oh my gosh, what if I don't even know this woman. What am I supposed to do? Walk up to her and ask her if I could lay our hands on her, tell her, that she's going to be healed. And then what if she's not healed? And then I look bad. My ego got in the way. I was in my early 20s and my ego got in the way. I grieved that for many, many, many years. I started doing hands-on work again when I got into my cancer circle, and I started seeing my friends dying, and the ones that were open to me laying hands on them, I did it. I wanted to do that for them, and I got a lot of feedback from women saying, wow, that's powerful. They felt the energies and the healing that was given through my hands. So that is a little bit different than some shamans. Some shamans don't do that sort of hands-on healing work, and so it's so interesting to me. All of us shamans, we're kind of like the X-Men. We're the mutants. We all have our different sort of talents, skills, giftings. We're all very different. Healing hands is something that I've been given as a gift, and it's different than my shamanic path. My shamanic path, I would say I definitely earned it in the sense that I went through the initiations. I earned discernment by the school of hard knocks, by coming up against some tough stuff and learning, the differences, the contrasts and things that are required for one to know when they, excel at discernment. But my healing hands, that's something that was just gifted to me. I don't feel it's anything I did or earned or went through or, in any kind of way. It was just a gift. But, not knowing exactly how to use that gift or wanting to have a deeper understanding of it metaphysically is what led me into Reiki, to try to have a system or, a method or, a foundation, a process, I guess, if you will. So I did get Reiki 1 and 2 attuned, and so I understand the chakras. The chakra system itself is not inherently shamanic. That tends to be a little bit more new age in its belief. It comes from the Eastern religions and the Eastern beliefs, and it's really infiltrated into the Western new age movement. So I'm not going to say that the chakra system is bunk, and I'm not going to say that it's shamanic, because it's neither. But I personally, in my hands-on work, prefer to not do Reiki. And this is precisely why, because I feel like it's not consistent with a shamanic view, in the sense that how I experience Reiki is actually more like a spa treatment. If you bring someone in and you lay them down and you open their chakras and you move out the heavy energies and you have this hour-long Reiki section, at the end of it you feel good, you feel clear, you feel happy, everything's good. It's like going to get a pedicure, or it's like going to get a massage, right? It's going to the spa. It's like having a spa day. You feel good, your energies are clear, you're open, you're feeling all that heart space energy, everything's great. And then you get in your car to go home and someone cuts you off and flips you off and, sends like these negative, energy darts at you. And all of a sudden, those chakras that you just spent $60 getting open go whoop, and they shut right up and you're back into this state. So we are energetic beings, and we're constantly in this flux, this energetic flux of low vibe and high vibe and open chakras and closed chakras. It's just the way that we are. It's the flows of energy. And so to try to approach healing in a long term by doing Reiki, to me, just feels ineffective, and it's not deep enough. It's just dealing with a certain layer, a certain level, and it's making somebody feel good for a certain period of time. But especially if they have a very entrenched pattern of having, say, the most common, like a closed root chakra or sacral chakra. They've had decades of this. Say they have a lot of sexual abuse trauma and their sacral chakras just shut off completely, and they've lived with this for 20 years, 30 years. An hour-long Reiki session is not going to fix this. It might open it up, and there might be a flowing, it might allow like a little emotional escape where the person can, experience that trauma and move a little bit of that energy and do a little bit of that work. But I mean, the second they get home and they're in their relationship again, that's going to shut right up again. And so it's a very long sort of approach, and it's just, I don't find it to be deep enough or effective enough personally. So I don't work with the chakra system, and I don't work with Reiki, and that's why. I feel that a shamanic healing is a much deeper, much more profound, and potentially much more lasting treatment in a much shorter period of time. So again, I'm not really saying, that miracles can't happen, because they can happen and they do happen. What I'm really saying is that people come expecting a miracle and they approach it from an allopathic standpoint, as if they're not going to have to do anything, as if they can just lay there silently in their bed for an hour and this incredibly powerful shaman's going to do all this hooba dooba dooba, and at the end of that hour you're miraculously healed from 30 years of symptomology, or 30 years of trauma that you've been carrying around in your body. That's not how it happens. It just doesn't happen. It can happen like that. It can. I mean, I hear of people like John of God, people go and, they have profound sickness and dis-ease and mental illness and all kinds of things, and, he does whatever he does, and people swear by it, that they were miraculously healed in a 5-minute session with John of God. It's possible, but I would say that tends not to be the shamanic way, and I definitely think it's not the Western shamanic way. What the distinction is between Western shamanism and other cultures, I think that we're still figuring that out. I think that shamanism in the Western cultures is resurging, but it's just budding, it's just coming out. The leaves are just starting to, come out and spring forth, and, people are exploring their ancestral DNA lineages, their soul lineages, and bringing a whole melting pot of shamanic expression to the West, as is a reflection of the American culture itself, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. But also, I think contained within that is going to be something that's decidedly Western. And I think in practice, how that looks is this much more soul-tending, psychotherapeutic, psycho-spiritual, psychodynamic approach to shamanism that takes into account, the ego and the work that the ego has to do in integrating the healing. So for me in my shamanic practice, that's going to look a little bit more like talking. We're going to talk a little bit, and I'm going to, make sure that you're ready to receive the healing, and I'm going to talk to you after the healing to make sure that you're tending to it. And I'm going to be giving you tips and ideas and homework and specific prescriptions, from the spirits themselves on, how to manifest more healing in your life. And so that's how my shamanic practice looks, and that's how I believe healing looks and how it happens. It's certainly how it's happened in my life. So as always, thank you so much for watching my video. I am in shamanic practice around the Austin, Texas area. If you're in the area or you're willing to drive to the area, I would love to meet with you in person. Otherwise, I do distance sessions, and I would feel honored to work with you. So reach out to me. If you look around my channel, you can find a lot of different ways to get a hold of me. If you just want to leave a question or comment down below the video, I would love to interact with you that way as well. I'm always open to positive discussion about healing and shamanism, and I would love to hear what your experiences are, or to answer any questions that you have. So anyway, have a great day, and I love you so much.